And welcome to another Salesforce and Trailhead tutorial with myself, Jonathan Fox, and today I'm going to be going through the last step in my video. So as you might remember from the previous videos, we made REST callouts to an external database to get a bunch of contacts. We processed them using Batchable Apex, and we utilized custom metadata to hold the endpoint information, the API key and such. So let's head over to Salesforce and see how now I've involved a Lightning Web Component to provide a nice UI to the user. So here what you can see is my Lightning Web Component. It has my user input and numerical field. So if I go ahead and type 555, we can see it's been logged down here. That's because I've got a bunch of console logs within my Lightning Web Component. I go ahead and click Kaboom, and we can see that now we've got the job ID. That's the job ID of the batch Apex. If I click View Progress, I can see that I have a loading bar and a loading circle, and once it's complete, it ticks and the bar's full. If I click Show Debug, I get to see some information about what was going on at the time. Now, if I go ahead and click Refresh, what I'm going to do is open that debug log a little bit earlier on so you can see the stages throughout the processing. So I'm going to go ahead and click Kaboom. I'm going to click View Progress and then Show Debug. And as you can see down at the bottom, we've now got total jobs 4, and we can see that it's processing and creating the percentage out of such, and then the processing changed to false. Now yes, this is a manual refresh to get the status of the job, but you could then look at building upon this to make that an automatic refresh. However, to be able to manage it, make sure that we're not doing too many calls, it is just a physical click to view the progress at this moment in time. So let's head over to VS Code and see how it's done. So here I've got two Lightning Web Components open, and that's because there is actually two Lightning Web Components. There's my user interface bit where I put the numerical value and the button, as well as the job ID. The second bit, the loading and the debug, is a second nested Lightning Web Component. And I can see that here. So here I am calling my second Lightning Web Component. Above I've got some areas to highlight any errors, although they are going to be showed in my Lightning Web Component at the bottom. So actually, they may be a bit redundant now. However, it was useful for testing and building. Here I've got my job ID, and if I have a job ID, then it renders this that yellow bar, which just displays my job ID. It's a nice thing to have. And here is what the main kind of function around this Lightning Web Component is. I've got my input, where the user can actually type the number of records they want. It passes to the Batchable Apex, which calls that callout class, and then therefore calls the external web service, passing in that number of records so that we get that number of contacts back. Also, we've got the button, which initiates this. So let's go into the JavaScript and see what's going on. I've got the first thing up here is my import, and I'm importing this. So this is just a label for what I'm importing, and I'm importing my Apex. This is my class, and this is my method. I'm tracking the number input. The job ID is decorated with API because I'm making it global to be able to pass into my nested Lightning Web Component. I'm tracking any errors and processing because I want to know when it's started processing and stopped processing. The on change here is when the user keys in a number, and we could see that changing with the console log here. So I'm tracking what the user types, and as soon as they click Kaboom, I am calling my Apex class and method, passing in the number of records. That's the argument within my Apex class, and this is my property here. And that is as simple as my this Lightning Web Component gets. The nested Lightning Web Component is slightly different. So what we have here is we have two buttons. We've got the View Progress and the toggle. They are as simple as there are sections here. You can see the sections, and if they are true. So if the parameter is true in the JavaScript, they show, and if they're not, they don't. It's a simple toggle on, toggle off. I've got my lightning progress ring and my lightning progress bar, and they're with the job percentage. So in the JavaScript, I'm working out the percentage to handle the progress of that circle or that bar. It's a real simple value, but I included both because I want to show that it's quite a nice little feature to have both, especially if you use the variant base autocomplete. It gives that little tick within the circle. The variant circular just gives rounded edges to your loading bar. I think it looks a little bit more modern. And then within my debug, you saw I had those little pills, and that's the lightning badge here. That's just automatically formatted, and then I've got basically just some text to display what's going on. That I suppose could be formatted a bit nicer. The main bulk of what's going on here is in the progress tracker, so that's what I've called my nested lightning web component. I've got the view progress tracker, which is when you click the green button. I am setting the progress to true, so then it renders the progress bar and the circle. I'm getting the status, so again I'm calling a class, the same class, different method, exactly the same as I did in the other lightning web component. Handling it exactly the same, so I'm storing, this time I'm being returned a full record rather than just an ID. I'm storing that record, the result, as the record property here. And then I am setting a few other properties, so I'm setting the total job items as the records field, which is total job items, and same again, total items processed. These two are the main ones because this and this divided by each other times 100 gives me my percentage. I'm also saying that if my percentage equals 100%, then just label the processing as false because it's no longer processing. And here is my toggle. Originally, I went down the route of having the out-of-the-box accordion. However, if you have only one accordion item within, it's automatically default, you can't change it, open, which is a bit of bad design in my opinion. I wanted it to hide it where you click it and it drops it down. But because I've only got one section of attributes to show, it's always default open. You couldn't hide it, so it really didn't do anything. So I've left the function called toggle accordion, however it's just the button that shows my debug log. Now, the only last bit to show is this class and this method. So here we have the class and method. This is the initiate, so this is when you've clicked Kaboom, you want it to carry out that batch apex. And here I am setting my job ID to whatever I get back from database.execute. I'm doing the new, and that's my class. You can see it on the right hand side here. We went through it in one of the other videos, and I'm passing in my number of records, which I get from my Lightning Web component. I'm returned a job ID from that anyway, and then I actually return the job ID back to the Lightning Web component that called this. I'm decorating it with Aura Enable because I need to if I want to use it within the Lightning Web component. And then my second method is getting the status. So this is when we click View Progress. I'm passing in the job ID that I got from the method above beforehand. I am then I'm just doing a simple SOQL query. Async apex job is the object. I'm calling it job info, which I'm passing back the full record of ID, status, number of errors, jobs, items processed, and total job items. So you've seen that I use these two fields to calculate the percentage, and then in the debug log I've got the status and the number of errors. Part of my debugging and testing when I was trying to build this, I needed to make sure that the ID was working and I was getting the right ID back. Of course I was always going to, but it was just a peace of mind. And there you can see in the SOQL query I'm doing where ID is the one that I've passed in. Returning that back. And then that enables me to use this record, which ends up being results. Where are we? We are here, result. So that is the record that was returned, and I'm storing it as this.record, and then I can access it with the fields. Case sensitive, as I found out, so you need to be using the ones that you've actually set there. Although in SOQL it's not case sensitive, however here it is. So whatever you've put in that query, you need to use here. That's just the main thing I found with the whole of this JavaScript. I'm not super flashy with JavaScript, and I found that case is a massive thing. Utilizing this, but understanding where this is used and the difference between using it within arrow functions and normal functions. So that can get quite confusing. But this is going to be on GitHub, so I'll provide the link in the description below. If you want to take a bit more of a look at it, then feel free, adapt it, change it. If you do adapt it and change it, please do give me a reference to it. I'd love to see it, and I'd love people to know where you got this example from and where you started from. If you want to dig into it anymore, give me any suggestions to making it any better, then that would be massively appreciated. So that was my quick overview of my Lightning Web Component. As I say, feel free to use my repo to adapt it, update it, change it, do whatever you want to it. It'd be nice if you could give some reference to myself within it if you do use it, but at least do give me a shout to let me see what you've done, because I really would like to keep iterating on this and making it better. If you have any improvements or any tips and tricks for me, I am still getting to grips with JavaScript, so please do. I'm no way an expert. Comment, feedback, help, everything in the comments below. Really appreciate it. But if you can, subscribe, like, and share, because that's how I can tell whether you guys like this or not. Until next time, thank you very much.